The first time Ethan saw Caleb, he was a storm in human form, tearing through the college quad with a smirk that could cut glass. It was freshman year at Willow Creek University, a small liberal arts school in rural Ohio. And Ethan, barely 18, was already drowning in the weight of being openly gay in a town that whispered freak behind his back. By the end of that first week, Cale, broad-shouldered, blonde, and the star of the lacrosse team, had made Ethan his target. It started with a shove in the hallway, Caleb's voice dripping with venom. "Watch where you're going, fairy." The word stung like a slap, but Ethan kept his head down, clutching his sketchbook like a shield. He'd learned early that silence was safer than fighting back in a place like this. Willow Creek was a postcard of small-town America-white picket fences, Friday night football, and a church on every corner. Ethan had come here hoping for a fresh start, a place to be himself after years of hiding in high school. His parents, both professors, had encouraged him to chase his art, to find his voice. But Caleb's taunts followed him like a shadow, growing sharper with every passing week. By mid-semester, Ethan's dorm room had become his sanctuary, the only place he could breathe without feeling eyes on him. Caleb wasn't just a bully. He was relentless. He'd mock Ethan's clothes-thrifted jackets and paint-splattered jeans in front of his teammates, their laughter echoing across the quad. Once, during a late-night study session in the library, Caleb accidentally spilled coffee over Ethan's sketchbook, ruining a portrait he'd spent weeks on. "Oops," Caleb said, his grin sharp enough to draw blood. Ethan didn't cry until he was alone, scrubbing the pages in a futile attempt to save them. But there was something strange about Caleb's cruelty, something Ethan couldn't quite name. Sometimes, when Caleb thought no one was watching, his eyes lingered on Ethan a little too long, not with hate, but with something softer, almost curious. Ethan dismissed it as wishful thinking. Why would someone like Caleb, popular, confident, untouchable, care about someone like him? By spring, Ethan had learned to avoid Caleb's haunts, the gym, the student union, the lacrosse field. But one night, during a campus art show, their paths collided. Ethan's paintings were on display, vibrant, raw depictions of identity and struggle. He stood nervously by his work, expecting indifference or worse. Instead, Caleb was there, alone, staring at a canvas Ethan had titled "Fractured Light," a swirl of blues and golds representing his own fragmented heart. "You did this." Caleb's voice was low, almost reverent. Ethan froze, expecting a jab. But Caleb's face was unguarded, his usual smirk gone. "It's good. Really good." Ethan didn't know how to respond. He mumbled a thank you and turned away, heart pounding. For the first time, Caleb hadn't attacked him. It was a small moment, but it cracked something open in Ethan's world. Over the next few weeks, Caleb's taunts lessened. He still hung with his teammates, still carried that air of untouchable confidence. But the venom was gone. Ethan caught him glancing over during lectures, not with malice, but with something that looked like guilt. It was confusing, unsettling, and Ethan hated how it made his stomach twist in ways he didn't understand. One rainy April evening, Ethan was walking back from the art studio, his portfolio case soaked, when he heard footsteps behind him. He tensed, expecting trouble. Instead, it was Caleb, holding an umbrella. "You're gonna ruin your stuff," Caleb said gruffly, thrusting the umbrella toward him. Ethan stared, dumbfounded. "Why do you care?" Caleb's jaw tightened, and for a moment, Ethan thought he'd lash out. Instead, Caleb muttered, "I don't know. Okay, just take it." Ethan took the umbrella, their fingers brushing briefly. The touch sent a jolt through him, and he hated himself for it. This was Caleb, the guy who'd made his life hell for months. But as Caleb walked away, shoulders hunched against the rain, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting. That night, alone in his dorm, Ethan sketched Caleb's face for the first time, not the cruel smirk, but the unguarded look from the art show. It was a reckless act, like drawing a storm you knew could destroy you. Sophomore year brought a tentative truce. Ethan and Caleb shared a literature class, and though Ethan braced for more torment, Caleb kept his distance. He sat a few rows back, quiet, his eyes occasionally flicking toward Ethan during discussions about Whitman or Dickinson. Ethan tried to focus on the professor's voice, but Caleb's presence was a low hum in his chest, impossible to ignore. One day, after class, Ethan lingered to ask the professor about an essay. Caleb was there too, waiting to turn in a late assignment. As Ethan left, Caleb fell into step beside him. "You're good at this stuff," Caleb said abruptly. "The way you talk about poetry. It's not fake." Ethan blinked, caught off guard. "Thanks, I guess." Caleb shrugged, shoving his hands in his pockets. "Just saying. Most people in there sound like they're reciting Wikipedia." It was the closest thing to a compliment Ethan had ever heard from him. They walked in silence for a moment, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot. Ethan wanted to ask why Caleb was being nice, but fear kept the words locked in his throat. That semester, they were paired for a group project on leaves of grass. Ethan dreaded it, expecting Caleb to slack off or worse. But Caleb showed up to every meeting, scribbling notes in his messy handwriting, asking questions about metaphors and identity. One night, in the library, Caleb leaned back in his chair, staring at Ethan. "You ever feel like you're hiding who you are?" Ethan's heart stuttered. "All the time," he admitted before he could stop himself. Caleb's eyes darkened, like he was wrestling with something. "Yeah, me too." The confession hung between them, heavy and unspoken. Ethan wanted to press, to ask what Caleb meant. But the moment passed. Caleb changed the subject, and they never spoke of it again. By winter, Ethan noticed Caleb showing up at places he frequented: the art studio, the coffee shop where Ethan sketched. It wasn't stalking. It was too clumsy for that. Caleb would linger, pretending to read a book or check his phone, but his glances were obvious. Ethan's friends, especially Mia, his roommate from the art program, noticed too. "He's got a thing for you," she teased one day. "No way," Ethan scoffed, but his cheeks burned. The idea was absurd. Caleb was straight, the golden boy of Willow Creek's lacrosse team. Yet Ethan couldn't deny the way his heart raced when Caleb's eyes met his. One snowy night, Ethan was leaving the studio when he found Caleb outside, shivering in a thin jacket. "You're gonna freeze," Ethan said, half joking. Caleb rubbed his hands together, breath visible in the cold. "Waiting for you." Ethan's stomach flipped. "Why?" Caleb hesitated, then blurted, "I'm sorry. For last year. For everything." The apology was so unexpected it knocked the air out of Ethan. He searched Caleb's face, expecting a trick, but all he saw was sincerity. "Why'd you do it?" Ethan asked, voice barely above a whisper. Caleb looked away, jaw tight. "I was an idiot. Scared. Mostly." "Scared of what?" Caleb didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer, close enough that Ethan could feel the heat of his breath. "Can we start over?" Caleb asked, his voice raw. Ethan wanted to say no, to protect himself from the guy who'd hurt him. But something in Caleb's eyes, vulnerable, almost pleading, made him nod. "Okay," he said softly. They started meeting outside of class. Tentative at first. Coffee runs turned into late-night talks about art, music, and the pressure of living up to everyone's expectations. Caleb opened up about his dad, a former Marine who expected him to be the perfect son, straight, strong, flawless. Ethan shared his own fears of never being enough, of his art falling short. One night, under the glow of a street lamp, Caleb reached for Ethan's hand. It was brief, a brush of fingers, but it set Ethan's heart on fire. He pulled back, scared of what it meant. But Caleb's small, shy smile stayed with him long after they parted ways. Junior year was a turning point. Ethan and Caleb were no longer just classmates. They were something undefined, teetering on the edge of friendship and something more. They spent hours together, studying in the library or walking through the snow-dusted campus. Caleb was different now, still cocky at times, but softer, more open. He'd laugh at Ethan's sarcastic quips, his eyes crinkling in a way that made Ethan's chest ache. But the world around them wasn't as forgiving. Willow Creek was small, and rumors spread fast. When Caleb started sitting with Ethan at the campus cafe, heads turned. His lacrosse teammates noticed, their whispers sharp with judgment. "What's with you and the art kid?" One of them asked Caleb during practice, loud enough for others to hear. Caleb shrugged it off, but Ethan saw the tension in his shoulders. "They're just jealous I'm stealing your time," Ethan joked, trying to lighten the mood. Caleb's laugh was forced. "Yeah, something like that." The pressure was building, though. Caleb's dad came to campus for a game, a towering man with a voice like gravel. Ethan watched from the bleachers as Caleb played, his father's eyes never leaving him. After the game, Ethan overheard them arguing in the parking lot. "You're distracted," his dad snapped. "This isn't who you are." Ethan didn't know what Caleb's dad meant, but the words lingered. A warning. That night, Caleb showed up at Ethan's dorm, his face pale. "Can I come in?" They sat on Ethan's bed, the room lit only by a desk lamp. Caleb was quiet for a long time, then said, "My dad thinks I'm throwing my life away, hanging out with you." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Because I'm gay." Caleb flinched. "It's not just that. He knows I'm not like him. Not the son he wanted." Ethan's heart pounded. "What does that mean?" Caleb looked at him, eyes raw with fear and something else longing. "I don't know how to say it," he whispered. "But when I'm with you, I feel right. For the first time." The air between them crackled. Ethan reached out, his hand trembling as it found Caleb's. This time, neither pulled away. Caleb leaned in, and their lips met, tentative at first, then desperate, like they'd both been holding their breath for years. The kiss changed everything. They didn't talk about it. Not yet. But they couldn't stay away from each other. Stolen moments in the art studio, hands brushing in the library, late-night drives to nowhere, all of it felt like a secret they were both terrified to name. But secrets don't stay hidden in Willow Creek. One night, after a party, Caleb's teammate Josh cornered Ethan outside the dorms. "You're messing with his head," Josh slurred, shoving Ethan against the wall. "Stay away from him." Ethan pushed back, heart racing. "It's not your business." "It is when he's throwing away his future for you." Josh spat. Caleb appeared out of the dark, pulling Josh off. "Back off," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. Josh laughed, bitter, and walked away. But the damage was done. The next day, the rumors were everywhere. Caleb was gay, or at least confused, and Ethan was to blame. Caleb's dad called him home that weekend. When he returned, his eyes were hollow. "He wants me to transfer," Caleb said, voice flat. "Says I'm ruining my life." Ethan felt like he was falling. "What did you tell him?" I told him I'm not going anywhere. Caleb said. Fierce. Not without you. It was the first time Caleb had admitted how deep this went. Ethan wanted to believe it. But fear gnawed at him. The world wasn't kind to people like them. Not here. The rumors spread like wildfire. And by senior year, Ethan and Caleb were no longer a secret. They hadn't meant to go public. But a photo of them holding hands at a campus bonfire had made its way to social media. The comments were brutal slurs. Bible verses. Accusations. Ethan tried to ignore them, focusing on his art and Caleb's quiet strength beside him. But the weight of it was crushing. Caleb's teammates were the worst. Some, like Josh, openly mocked him, while others just stopped talking to him. Practice became a battlefield, with Caleb pushing himself harder to prove he was still the star player. Ethan watched him come back from games bruised, not just physically but emotionally. They'll get over it, Caleb said, but his voice was hollow. Ethan's parents, supportive but worried, called him often. Are you safe? His mom asked, her voice tight. Ethan lied, saying everything was fine. But it wasn't. One night, someone spray-painted a slur on Ethan's dorm door. Caleb was there in minutes, scrubbing it off with a rag, his hands shaking with rage. I'm sorry, he kept saying, like it was his fault. It's not, Ethan said, pulling him into a hug. We're in this together. But together was harder than either expected. Caleb's dad stopped paying his tuition, forcing Caleb to take a part-time job at a hardware store to stay in school. Ethan helped where he could, sharing his meal plan, but the strain was evident. Caleb was quieter, his smiles rarer. One night, in Ethan's dorm, Caleb broke. What if this is a mistake? He whispered, staring at the ceiling. What if I'm dragging you down with me? Ethan's heart cracked. You're not. You're the best thing in my life. Caleb turned to him, eyes wet. I don't deserve you. Not after what I did. Ethan took his face in his hands. You're not that guy anymore. You're here. That's what matters. They clung to each other that night, the world outside forgotten. But the pressure didn't let up. Caleb's dad showed up unannounced one weekend, demanding to see him. Ethan waited outside the diner where they met, watching through the window as Caleb's shoulders slumped under his father's words. When Caleb came out, he looked broken. He gave me an ultimatum, Caleb said. Him or you. What did you choose? Ethan asked, throat tight. Caleb took his hand, resolute. You. It was a victory, but it came at a cost. Caleb was cut off completely, no money, no family. Ethan's parents offered to help, but Caleb refused, too proud to take charity. Instead, he threw himself into his job and studies, determined to prove he could make it on his own. Ethan, meanwhile, poured his pain into his art. His senior thesis project was a series of paintings about love and identity, inspired by Caleb. When he showed Caleb the work, Caleb was silent for a long time, staring at a canvas that depicted two figures reaching for each other against a stormy sky. This is us, he finally said, voice thick with emotion. The thesis show was a triumph, with professors and local artists praising Ethan's vulnerability and skill. Caleb was there, beaming with pride, but Ethan noticed him scanning the crowd, as if expecting his dad to show up. He didn't. As graduation loomed, Ethan and Caleb faced a new question. What now? Ethan had a job offer at a gallery in Chicago, while Caleb was applying to grad schools. The idea of being apart was unbearable, but neither wanted to hold the other back. One night, under the stars on a hill overlooking Willow Creek, Caleb took Ethan's hand. Wherever you go, I'm going, he said. You're my home. Ethan's eyes burned with tears. Even after everything. Especially after everything, Caleb said, and kissed him. Graduation came and went. A blur of caps and gowns and bittersweet goodbyes. Ethan and Caleb moved to Chicago together, renting a tiny apartment above a laundromat. It wasn't glamorous leaky pipes, noisy neighbors, but it was theirs. For the first time, they could be themselves without the weight of Willow Creek's judgment. Ethan started at the gallery, curating exhibits and sketching in his free time. Caleb got a job coaching youth lacrosse while taking night classes for his master's in education. They built a life. Piece by piece, late-night pizza runs, lazy Sundays on the couch, stolen kisses in the rain. But the past wasn't so easy to leave behind. Caleb still carried the weight of his dad's rejection. He'd check his phone sometimes, as if hoping for a message that never came. Ethan tried to fill the gap, but he knew it wasn't enough. One night, Caleb came home from work, his face drawn. Josh called. He said, "He's getting married. Asked me to be in the wedding." Ethan raised an eyebrow. The same Josh who tried to punch me. Caleb laughed, but it was hollow. Yeah. He apologized. Said he was drunk that night. But it's weird. Everyone's moving on, and I'm still stuck. Ethan pulled him close. You're not stuck. You're here. With me. But Caleb's doubts lingered. He started working longer hours, pushing himself to be the perfect coach, the perfect student. Ethan worried he was burning out, but Caleb brushed it off. I need to prove I'm worth something, he said once, his voice raw. Ethan's art became their refuge. He'd sketch Caleb when he wasn't looking, reading on the fire escape, laughing at a bad movie. One day, Caleb found the sketches and flipped through them, his expression softening. You make me look better than I am, he said. No, Ethan replied. I draw what I see. Their first big fight came a year into Chicago. Ethan wanted to visit his parents for Christmas, but Caleb refused, saying he wasn't ready to face a family that wasn't his. They're not my parents, Caleb snapped. They're yours. Ethan flinched. They want to know you. Why is that so hard? Because I don't belong there, Caleb shouted. I don't belong anywhere. The words hung heavy. Ethan walked out, needing air, and wandered the snowy streets for hours. When he came back, Caleb was sitting on the floor, head in his hands. I'm sorry, Caleb whispered. I'm scared I'll never be enough for you. Ethan knelt beside him. You're enough. You've always been enough. They made up, but the fight left a mark. Ethan started noticing the small things, how Caleb flinched at loud voices, how he'd check the locks twice before bed. The bullying, the rejection, the years of hiding had left scars neither could erase. One spring evening, Ethan took Caleb to an open mic night at a queer-friendly bar. He'd been working on a spoken word piece about their journey, from hate to love. When he took the stage, his voice shook, but he poured everything into his pain, the hope, the love he'd fought for. Caleb sat in the audience, tears in his eyes, clapping louder than anyone when Ethan finished. Later, in their apartment, Caleb pulled Ethan into his arms. I don't deserve you, he said, voice thick. Ethan smiled. Good thing I get to decide that. They started talking about the future marriage. Maybe a house. A life bigger than their tiny apartment. But the past wasn't done with them. One day, Ethan got a call from Mia, his old friend from Willow Creek. Caleb's dad is sick, she said. He's asking for him. Caleb's face went pale when Ethan told him. I can't, he said, shaking his head. Not after everything. Ethan took his hand. You don't have to forgive him, but you might need to say goodbye. Caleb didn't want to go back to Willow Creek. But Ethan convinced him. "You'll regret it if you don't," Ethan said, packing a bag for both of them. The drive was quiet, the Ohio countryside stretching out in endless fields and fading barns. Caleb gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. When they arrived at the hospital, Caleb's dad was frail, a shadow of the man who'd loomed so large in his life. Ethan stayed in the waiting room, giving Caleb space. The visit was short, but when Caleb came out, his eyes were red. He didn't apologize, Caleb said, but he said he was proud of me. First time in my life. Ethan pulled him into a hug, letting Caleb's weight lean into him. "You okay?" "I don't know," Caleb admitted, "but I'm glad you're here." They stayed in Willow Creek for the funeral a week later. Caleb's teammates showed up, some offering stiff condolences, others avoiding his gaze. Josh was there, his new wife on his arm. He pulled Caleb aside, mumbling an apology for the past. "I was wrong," Josh said. "You seem happy." Caleb nodded, his hand finding Ethan's. "I am." Back in Chicago, life settled into a new rhythm. Caleb finished his master's and got a job teaching history at a local high school. He was good at it, patient, inspiring, the kind of teacher kids remembered years later. Ethan's career at the gallery was taking off, with his own work gaining attention in the local art scene. But the past still lingered. One night, Caleb woke up from a nightmare, sweating and shaking. "I was back there," he said, voice hoarse, "in Willow Creek. Everyone hated me." Ethan held him, whispering, "You're not there anymore. You're here, with me." Caleb started therapy, something he'd resisted for years. It was hard at first, peeling back the layers of shame and fear. But it helped. Ethan noticed the change. Caleb's smiles came easier, his laughter louder. They started hosting friends in their apartment, a mix of artists and teachers who filled the space with warmth. One summer evening, Ethan took Caleb to the lakefront. The city skyline glittered against the water, and Ethan was nervous, his hands sweaty as he pulled out a small box. "I've been thinking," Ethan said, voice shaking. "You're my home, too. Will you marry me?" Caleb's eyes widened, then softened. He laughed, a sound full of joy, and pulled Ethan into a kiss. "Yes," he whispered against Ethan's lips. 1,000 times. "Yes." Planning the wedding was chaotic but joyful. Ethan's parents helped, thrilled to welcome Caleb into the family. Caleb's mom, estranged since his childhood, reached out after hearing the news. Their reunion was tentative, but it was a start. The wedding was small, held in a community garden under string lights. Ethan wore a navy suit, Caleb a gray one, both of them grinning like kids. Mia was Ethan's best woman, and Caleb's favorite student, a shy kid named Lucas, gave a speech that left everyone in tears. "Mr. Carter taught me it's okay to be yourself," Lucas said. "He's the bravest person I know." As they danced under the stars, Caleb whispered to Ethan, "I never thought I'd have this." Ethan smiled, resting his forehead against Caleb's. "You deserve it. We both do." Their life wasn't perfect. There were bills, arguments, the occasional doubt. But every night, when they climbed into bed, Ethan felt the weight of Caleb's arm around him and knew they'd made it through the worst. Years passed, and Ethan and Caleb grew into their life together. They bought a small house in a quiet Chicago suburb, with a backyard where Caleb tried and failed to grow tomatoes. Ethan turned the garage into a studio, his paintings now selling at galleries across the Midwest. Caleb became the head of his school's history department, known for his inclusive curriculum and fierce advocacy for his students. But the world still had sharp edges. One of Caleb's students, a trans girl named Ellie, came to him in tears after being harassed at school. Caleb stayed late, helping her draft a complaint to the administration, then drove her home to make sure she was safe. When he told Ethan about it, his voice was heavy. "I keep thinking about how I used to be. The things I said to you." Ethan took his hand. "You're not that person anymore. You're helping kids like Ellie be who they are." Caleb nodded, but the guilt never fully left him. He poured it into his work, starting a GSA at his school and mentoring kids who felt like they didn't belong. Ethan joined him sometimes, leading art workshops for the students. Watching Caleb with them patient, encouraging made Ethan fall in love all over again. Their 5th anniversary was quiet. Just the two of them at the diner where they'd had their first real date after college. The chalkboard menu still hung on the wall, though the words had changed. Caleb traced his finger over Ethan's wedding ring. "You ever think about where we'd be if we hadn't met?" Ethan shuddered. "I'd probably still be hiding in my dorm, sketching you in secret." Caleb laughed, the sound warm and unguarded. "I'd be miserable, trying to be someone I'm not." They talked about kids that night, something they'd danced around before. Adoption, maybe, or fostering. "We could give someone a home," Ethan said, his voice soft, "like we did for each other." Caleb's eyes shone. "Yeah, I'd like that." The process wasn't easy paperwork. Home visits, endless waiting. But when they got the call about a 14-year-old boy named Sam, who'd been in foster care for years, they knew he was theirs. Sam was quiet, wary, with a love for comic books and a sharp wit that reminded Ethan of himself. Caleb took to fatherhood naturally, teaching Sam how to throw a lacrosse ball, while Ethan helped him sketch his own stories. Sam's first year with them was rocky. He'd push them away, testing their commitment. But Ethan and Caleb stayed steady. One night, Sam broke down, admitting he was scared they'd give up on him. Caleb hugged him tight. "We're not going anywhere," he said. "You're stuck with us." Ethan watched them, his heart full. This was the life he'd never dared dream of in Willow Creek, a family, a home, a love that had survived the worst. But the past wasn't done with them. One day, a letter arrived from Caleb's mom. She was moving to Chicago, wanted to reconnect. Caleb was hesitant, but Ethan encouraged him to meet her. "You don't have to forgive her," Ethan said, "but you might find something worth keeping." The meeting was awkward, full of silences, but it was a start. Caleb's mom cried when she saw Sam, saying he reminded her of Caleb at that age. It wasn't closure, but it was a step. 10 years after college, Ethan and Caleb stood in their backyard, watching Sam toss a lacrosse ball with his friends. The house was alive with laughter, the kind of warmth Ethan had once thought impossible. Their journey hadn't been easy. Hate, fear, and rejection had tested them at every turn, but they'd built something unbreakable. Ethan's art was now in museums. His latest series a tribute to their story, canvases of storms giving way to light, of two hands reaching across a divide. Caleb had become a mentor to countless kids. His GSA a safe haven for those who felt like outsiders. Sam was thriving, applying to art schools with Ethan's guidance and Caleb's encouragement. One evening, they got a call from Mia. She was curating a queer art exhibit in New York and wanted Ethan to headline it. "Bring your family," she said. "I want the world to see what you've built." The exhibit was a whirlwind. Ethan's paintings filled the gallery, each one telling a piece of their story. Caleb stood beside him, holding Sam's hand, as critics and strangers praised the raw emotion in Ethan's work. One painting, Home, showed two figures embracing under a golden sky. with a smaller figure Sam standing nearby. The plaque read, "For the love that fought to exist." After the opening, Caleb pulled Ethan aside. "I was wrong. You know," he said, his voice soft. "Back in college, when I thought I could hurt you and feel nothing, you changed me." Ethan smiled, his eyes wet. "You changed yourself. I just gave you a reason." They kissed, the gallery buzzing around them. And Sam groaned. "Gross. Get a room." They laughed, pulling him into a hug. Back home, life settled into its beautiful chaos. Sam started high school. Caleb's mom became a regular at Sunday dinners. And Ethan kept painting, his work a testament to resilience and love. They faced challenges: bigotry, doubt, the usual mess of life, but they faced them together. One night, as they lay in bed, Caleb turned to Ethan. "If I could go back, I'd do it all differently. I'd be better from the start." Ethan traced his jaw. "Then we wouldn't be here. Every scar, every fight, it made us." Caleb smiled, pulling him close. "You're still the love of my life." "And you," Ethan whispered, "are the last person I thought I'd call home." Their story wasn't perfect, but it was there's a testament to the power of forgiveness, courage, and love that refused to break. They'd started as enemies, bound by pain, but they'd ended as a family, bound by something stronger. In a world that tried to tear them apart, they'd built a home that no one could take away.